At $200, a Super Nintendo setup costs twice as much as the old system. For the money, the company promises better pictures, sound, and adventure. Now you're playing with power, superpower. You're the king, I tell you! The king!
Only for Super NES.
Only on Super NES.
You're listening to the SNES broadcast with your host, Soulblazer.
Hello, everybody. This is the Super NES podcast, episode number 186. These are your regular hosts of the podcast. I'm Greg. He is Joe.
Hi.
And we're covering another one of Joe's picks this time. And again, Joe wanted to go to the obscure Japanese titles first to cover in this because, you know, he's like George that way, wanting to cover obscure, weird Japanese games.
I like obscure games, I'm sorry.
I thought this one actually was pretty popular in Japan, so I really wouldn't call it obscure. It's mostly obscure to Americans because obviously the game never came out here in the West, which is a shame because we'll get into it here like in a little bit. But anyway, which game do you want to like look at this time?
Gunple Gunproof.
Yes, which actually is labeled a couple different ways depending upon where you see it at. Besides the way that Joe called it, it's also commonly listed like on top, online by its direct translation of Gunman's proof. Proof. So or sometimes just Gunman's proof.
Yeah,
you see that a lot too, especially on eBay. So,
Yeah, I was gonna say eBay listings. I saw Gunman's proof when I was looking for a few refresher videos since it's been a while since I've completed this game. On YouTube, that also was like Gunbrewer would find you some stuff, but Gunman's proof would find everything. Like so.
Yeah, it's a strange name. I don't know where the name came from because it's not based off an existing property.
Right.
So I don't know why the game is called the way it is. I couldn't find anything online while doing research on this that indicates like why the name's called this. But I mean, Gunman's proof kind of literally kind of like describe like your role in the game as being a gunman.
Right.
But you know that's the best thing I could think about. Anyway, yeah. So, what made you decide to cover this game, Joe, and how'd you hear about it?
All right. So I originally saw this in one of those quick YouTube videos where they show you like 3 seconds of the gameplay, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this is the name of the game, and it's super obscure, and you should definitely check it out." And I was like, "They got me," because I saw it and I was like, "Yeah, that looks pretty cool," because it kind of looks like Zelda, but this weird looking dude with guns, and I was like, "I like Zelda. I got to give this a try." So that started my journey, and then it was finally I'd say about a month after I discovered it that, I had one of my picks coming up, and I was like, well, you know what, since I've already been playing this game, let's throw it up on there and let's cover it. So.
Okay, well, yep. Yeah, I never heard of this game, that's for sure. So, it's just, it's an interesting game, like in several ways. Like Joe said, this game is very strongly Zelda inspired. I feel like this feels like a Zelda clone, because it's an action adventure game. But it takes place like in a Wild West setting as well, which kind of like sets it apart. And the game does have elements from other games as well too. I was reminded about like Zombies Ate My Neighbors while playing this game, because some of the gameplay and some of the humor aspects to it. Earthbound also, speaking about humor.
Absolutely.
So this is so the history of this game is a little bit interesting. This is a very late Super NES game. Actually, technically, since this game was released only in Japan, so it's technically a Super Famicom game. I'm just calling it Super NES just to make it easier, like more consistent. But it came out in Japan in January of 1997, so very, very late in the Super NES's lifespan. Games came out in Japan longer for the system than they did here in North America, but even in 1997, there were still a dozen games released for Super NES in North America. So if this game had come out in North America that year, it would have been up against the likes of, well, a lot of shovelware games for sure. But 97 did see the release of two very big Super NES games. Harvest Moon came out for Super NES in 97. I didn't realize myself, being a big fan, I'm a big fan of the Harvest Moon series. I didn't realize the game, but I didn't realize the game came out that late for the system. And Nintendo's last game for the system was Kirby's Dream Land 3, which came out later on that year. Which came out late '97 as well too. So. Also, Arkanoid Do It Again, a game we covered before in this podcast, also got released that year as well too, as well as a bunch of sports games and whatnot. The very last Super NES game in North America was actually Frogger, which came out in 1998.
Which baffles me, because I'm thinking about this, this game's cool, and I understand why it didn't get localized and brought over here, and we'll cover that. But think about what you were just talking about, what was coming out for the SNES in 1997, along with the likes of Duke Nukem on the PC. You had Star Fox 64 on the Nintendo 64. That baffles. When I think Nintendo 64, I think 98, 99. The idea that it came out in 96, and it was the tail end of 96, but still 96, and the Super Nintendo was still vibrant and alive. If they did the same thing with the Nintendo when they released the Super Nintendo, but it just amazes me that they supported it that long, and they've done that with all their consoles. But to actually go back and actually look at that stuff is just baffling to me.
Well, if that's baffling to you, this is going to blow your mind. And the same day this game came out in Japan, on January 31st, January 31st, 1997, another game came out also that day. Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it had the same release date as Final Fantasy VII. How is this game popular? How did it not get buried under the weight of Final Fantasy VII? You know what I mean?
Pretty much the same reason. Pretty much the same reason that the other late Super NES games did okay, because it's the system. The system had a large install base by that point. The games are cheaper. Not everybody had a PlayStation at that point. So it's you have the systems. The systems so popular as hand-me-down games, systems for kids.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
So, but yeah, so the game. I don't know how. I don't know how well the game sold in Japan, because we don't have sales figures at that time period. However, the game reviewed very well, which we'll get into later on. So, and looking at eBay, it's not terrible. The pricing is not terribly out of control for this game, which is just that it didn't. Which is just the game at least had a decent print run.
Yeah.
So, and because also I think reviews, word of mouth probably helped a lot, because the game is very Zelda inspired. Zelda's just as popular in Japan as it is in North America.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I'm sure that also had a lot to do with it. But so the game was developed by a company called Lenar, which I think is saying. Which I believe I'm pronouncing correctly. It's spelled Lenar.
Yep, Lenar. And I'm sure you're going to talk about it, so we'll play a little back and forth. What was the other game that they created? They didn't create very many games. Period. It looks like they were around from 1986 to 1997. Most of their games obviously stayed in Japan, but there were 4 games that came out in North America, which were. 5 games there came in North America. Deadly Towers. That's the one I was thinking of.
Which is
very infamous.
Deadly Towers is kind of it's not. I don't hate the game, but I can see why it gets a lot of dislike. It's a very abstract, hard to figure out, confusing game. So you definitely need a map and a walkthrough to play the game. Which I don't think, which I don't think, which I don't know how many players 1987 are going to do for it, but they also developed Zombie Hunter for the NES, which is a very underrated game. I mean, that's a fun game.
Yeah.
So, their other games in North America were Image Fight for the NES, Mercenary Force for the Game Boy, and Night Quest for the Game Boy.
And I never heard or played any of those.
They came well in Japan they did a lot of sports games, wrestling games, racing games. So this company better known like the Japanese games for sure. And it was published by a company we've not talked about here on this podcast yet because we've not covered one of their games yet. ASCII, which is now known as ASCII Media Works. ASCII was originally ASCII was originally ASCII Corporation. They came corporation. They were founded in 1977, and then they came. So then they merged with MediaWorks in 2008 to become ASCII Media Works. So ASCII, again, we're heavily focused upon the Japanese market, but some of their games did come over here in North America. They published a lot of games for a lot of systems, computer systems as well, such as the MSX, like the stuff that they covered. So the North American games. What was the most famous? Well, they published some cult favorites for the NES: Star Voyager, Castle Quest, Gun-Knack. They released the computer port of Wizardry 2 on the NES over here. So the Kingsfield games were published by them. Do you remember those games? Like PlayStation? Yep. So. Armored Core was one of their games. So I wouldn't call any like major hits, but hits of theirs. They did, but they did release some very well thought of games at least. So today, ASCII Media Works, as the name suggests. They specialize in publishing books, entertainment, computer magazines, manga like video games. So, much more better known in Japan than they are like here in North America.
For sure.
This game is very Japanese in both the story and also like both the story, like how the game actually plays. Do you want to take a stab at describing this like crazy story, Joe?
Yeah. So you're on an island that's fashioned after the Wild West, and an evil alien basically comes down and starts turning people into weird creatures. And there's two space aliens that come down who are basically like space cops. And they crash land their ship, which needs to be repaired. One of the aliens ends up literally taking over your body and possessing you. So although you are playing as a child with a gun, technically you're an alien with a gun. I guess that's how they get around it. It's okay for the kid to be firing and killing people. And then the second alien becomes your faithful steed at some point when you collect carrots. And it's fantastic because there's a couple Sailor Moon references there. That made me laugh. So, yeah, I mean, man, let me tell you, like, I was trying to explain to my friend Corey about this game because, I was talking about how I was preparing for this podcast. And I was like, dude, it's Legend of Zelda meets Earthbound in all the right ways. And that is the best explanation I could have for it because the story is bonkers, and the gameplay is actually pretty good. My biggest gripe is that it advertises that it can shoot in 8 directions, but good luck getting those diagonal shots. It's not so easy.
Yeah, the diagonal shot's pretty
Yeah.
difficult. I also, I had another like gripe that's bigger than that, but we'll get into it in a moment. The alien takeover can also explain why there's very futuristic weapons in this game when normally there should have been this time period, such as like Uzi machine guns, flamethrowers, and bazookas.
Yeah.
You can just kind of explain it like the alien influence is doing.
Yeah,
it, so,
exactly.
But
It makes complete sense. I was totally cool with wielding an Uzi, I'm just saying.
So yeah, the game is very Zelda-like. I mean, like, you know, if you were basically, it's so Zelda-like that you would replace the main character of Link and also replace the life gauge with hearts. You definitely could pass it off a Zelda game, like no problem, because it's close enough. Because it's that close enough to Zelda. So obviously they took inspiration from Link to the Past, in a big way, which is ironic because we are covering Links in the Past very shortly in this podcast. Spoiler. So, but anyway, yeah. So, but anyway, yeah. The game features an open world map that you just walk around on and explore. There are 8 dungeons There are 8 dungeons to go through the game, which again is very like Zelda-ish. You also can find items, weapons as usual. You can also there's also a shop system in the game where you can also like buy things from shopkeepers to help you through the game. So yeah, the game screen just basically has like you guy walking around the screen. There's a life gauge. There's a score. I don't know why the game is a score system. I think the score system is used to determine when you earn extra lives, although like arcade games. But seeing a score system in a Zelda-ish game is very weird to me.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, and you know, it gives you some replay value, because if it wasn't for the score, there'd be no replay value in this game, to be honest. There's very little that's hidden. It's all pretty much right there in your face. So like without the scoring system, to me, it's kind of pointless to replay. It's really all about how fast you can get through the dungeons and beat the boss.
Yeah. So you also see on screen like the amount of cash you have, and your 2 weapons. You have a melee weapon like your fist, and also like a distance weapon like your gun. And if one of them has bullets or ammo, then then it like shows how many shots you have left. I mean, the graphics for this game. Actually, in all seriousness, I'm really surprised. I'm almost surprised Nintendo didn't sue about it because you know how sue happy Nintendo is. Because like the graphics. The game engine literally seems like lifted out of Link to the Past. It's that close.
Yeah.
It's like the textures of the walls and dungeons, the overlay map of its road system and the grass and the flowers, the look of the towns. Yeah. It's almost like they literally took the game code, tweaked a couple things here and there, and then like released the game. It's that close. I literally
put art assets and level design, dungeon design, and especially the map and inventory screen look like they were ripped from A Link to the Past, to the point where they just look like they were maybe mirror flopped, if that. Like,
yeah, it's like I'm really surprised. It's like maybe Nintendo just didn't care because like this is a dime system.
Right.
Cares,
that's kind of what I was thinking of.
But yeah, it's very. I mean, like the Japanese also are. I should probably make 2 distinctions about that. One, Nintendo is more sue happy now than they were like 20 years ago. So like they weren't quite as litigious. Sorry, what's the word like litigious back then as they are now. 2, the Japanese also have for a long time, and this is still going on recently as a matter of fact, are much more lax of copyright law. So I mean, Japanese for a long time have like literally ripped off movies, music, TV shows, whatever, and not given proper credit, like the original developers,
right,
designers. Right. So I think the Japanese ripping each other off in this way probably something back then that didn't see like an eye raise. It still happens today, as a matter of fact. I just don't think it's as common now as it was back then. Right. So because the Japanese also, they just don't have the copyright system in Japan just works very differently than it is here in the U.S. and fair use for that matter too. I'm not sure if you heard about the story, Joe, but like recently there was a big anime YouTuber who got a cease and desist letter from one of the Japanese studios. I don't think it was Toho. I think it was another one of the big Japanese anime companies.
Toei.
Toei?
Yeah.
Was it Toei?
Yeah. It was all Dragon Ball.
Literally hundreds of...
It was all Dragon Ball stuff.
Okay, Dragon Ball. Literally hundreds and hundreds of like cease and desist takedown notices sent to
Literally
his channel.
destroyed his channel.
Right. So eventually, YouTube actually came out like in his defense. Because it's all fair use, and we'd recognize here in the West as all being fair use. The Japanese don't have that concept. Yeah. So eventually, a compromise reached where like some of the videos stayed down. I don't know how many. I think it was maybe like 25% of the videos
something
probably
like that.
Stayed down, and like the rest of them like were allowed to be like put back up. But yeah, it's the first time YouTube actually had to step in there and actually make that distinction. It's like, okay, we recognize this as being fair use. You could block the video in Japan if you want to, but we're going to allow the videos up because here in North America, that's these should be like fair use videos. So very interesting case. Yeah. So anyway, long story short, the Japanese just don't care the same. They just don't care about the same about like copyright infringement and like copying as we as the West does. So which I think was the big reason why this game like flew under the radar as far as Nintendo was concerned. But man, if somebody did this today with Breath of the Wild, you got to imagine Nintendo would have a lawsuit on their hand the moment the game came out. So it's very interesting. You started talking about gameplay a little bit here, a little bit before already, Joe. It seems logical just to finish it up.
Yeah. So you got the 8 directions that you can shoot in technically for. You have a charge shot that's really cool. The charge shot, to me, as you get later in the game, is more helpful, but it's also harder to pull off because the enemies kind of swarm you. Of course, then again, that's where the Uzi, bazooka, and the fireworks come into play. Though I highly recommend, if you're playing this game, keep the fireworks. That's why I told you there are no secrets. And if there are secrets, it's very few. Keep those fireworks because it's an easy way to eliminate the bosses. And one of the biggest gripe I have with this game is the fact that this game is easy. That's not a bad thing because, I was able to get through this. But for fans of Zelda or even, the Mother series, you're expecting a certain amount of difficulty, and this game just honestly doesn't have it. Other than that, and one of the things I think that make this easy, and you might agree, Greg, is the fact that you can gain hearts and you can gain hit points or whatever, but you have lives, and you start off with 4 lives, and I had to. There were quite a few times where, I just visibly, forced myself to die because I felt like I wasn't getting anywhere. And if you go through and, in the town and you're able to buy what you need and upgrades and all that other stuff, and you get through the first couple dungeons, I mean, you could be set for the entire game. You could be so OP that you're just going to walk through it.
So that goes part and parcel with my main complaint of the game, which I don't really know. It's kind of chicken. It's kind of to me, it's kind of a chicken and egg situation because I'm not really quite sure if this is the reason for it or whatnot. But yeah. As you mentioned, Joe, the game does have limited lives. If you lose all your lives, it's game over. There's no there's no password feature. There's
no continue.
No continue. No battery pack, which forces you to play this game in one sitting. But I wonder, did they not bother with that because the game's so easy, or did they make the game easy so they didn't have to include that?
Yeah.
Just to kind of, I don't know which one's true.
No, you're spot on. And what's crazy is that as easy as it is, the average length of gameplay I saw was about 10 hours. So.
Well, I actually found a video online that was like 2.5 hours.
Oh, nice. So, I mean, it took me probably about 10 hours, but also, you know, you guys know how I play. Like, it's very slow and methodical.
It's just very weird to have a game this long in the Super NES period not have like either like a password or a battery pack.
It's definitely weird, and I definitely, you know, I mean, the fact that this was the last game the company made, I think that, you know, maybe the writing.
One of the last games.
Well,
Super
right.
NES,
So, you know, for the Super NES at the time, like, maybe like they just saw the writing on the wall. Like, hey, you know what? Like, we're gonna put this out. It's probably not gonna sell well, so let's not spend the extra money on a battery pack. Let's not spend the extra money on the bigger RAM cartridge. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. Like, as far as business goes, I get it. But yeah, I mean, that basically covers controls and whatnot. I mean, the game's fantastic as far as like going through the dungeons. The dungeons are fun. They're, you know, kind of linear almost, but they're fun. And the bosses are unique. I really enjoyed the boss encounters and whatnot. And, you know, it's like any other, like, you know, it's like this, I hate bringing up Zelda, but it's true. Like, it's like they train you, you know, leading up to like how you would take care of the boss. It's not as like coherent as Zelda is, like where Zelda will like force you to learn the tricks that you need to use to beat the boss in the dungeon. But with this one, it's you know, it's the typical thing with like Ninja Gaiden or Castlevania or anything like that, where it's like, you know, you may die, but in death you're going to understand, oh, this is what I need to do, this is how I can change it. So yeah.
That's a pretty good summary. I mean, like, you know, there definitely is, you know, besides the whole like Earthbound humor in the game, there definitely is some interesting weapons, some interesting enemies in this game. The enemy design is like pretty good, I thought. You know, there definitely is some very enemies design. There's also not a ton of games that have there are a ton of games from this time period that have the Wild West theme going on either.
Right.
So, you know, having that Wild West coating of paint slapped over a Zelda clone is pretty interesting.
Yeah, agreed.
But the only other real early Western clone I think about was another game I really enjoyed, the Lone Ranger game by Konami for the NES, which also was like Western based. That's also like a very, very good game. So, but yeah, nowadays the more common for Western games because of the popularity like the Red Dead Redemption series. But yeah, back then it wasn't as common, especially Japan. But you know, but again, like with Earthbound, you saw a Japanese take on American life. With this game, you're seeing Japanese take like the American Wild West. So again, the game's interesting. The game's interesting in several ways because of that. We've already touched on the graphics some. The game literally is kind of like a Zelda game. Like 90% of the game, the graphics look like they're straight from Zelda. So they're good graphics. There is something like they just feel a bit dated by 1997 because the fact that the game is based on a game that came out like 1991.
My biggest thing was like the backgrounds and a lot of the assets as far as like houses and whatnot. That kind of looks like Legend of Zelda-ish. But all the characters reminded me of Earthbound. All of them. Like, the design of all the characters, even the bosses, like, all just reminded me of Earthbound. So it's kind of like they were like, okay, you know, Zelda, everybody's familiar with that. So we'll use that as the base. But, you know, we're going to throw in our own stuff to kind of make it funny and make it our own. And that's what they did.
Yeah, the main character looks nice. Like, it has that... he has that like Wild West theme going on of like the sombrero hat and also the cloak, like in the boots.
Oh,
so,
tell me how much fun it was when you were able to get a carrot and your horse comes out and does some like Sailor Moon pose and then just you start running around like you have a magic star in Mario and just like knocking people over. Like, tell me that's not the best.
Well, I cracked it the first time. I cracked it the first time they took out the bazooka because that thing was like huge compared to the rest of him. It's going like, holy crap! You get your
the bazooka got me, but the horse, like, I don't know if it's like every time, because I noticed different animations for the horse, but like I got lucky, I guess. The first time I saw the horse, like the horse did like the whole Sailor Moon thing, and I was just like, oh my god, like this is fantastic. Like, in '97, if they would have actually released this in America, like people would have been like, huh? You know what I mean? But like
Right,
'97 in Japan, like Sailor Moon was like booming. Same with like Dragon Ball. So like, I totally get why they would throw a reference in there, and like it's the little things.
Was Sailor Moon even available? Like available in the West at that point?
I'm
I
sure
when it
if
first
you
came
looked
out.
hard enough, you probably could acquire it. But as far as like on TV with Toonami or whatever else, no, absolutely not. That did.
You're making me
Yeah, that
curious
didn't
here.
come
I'm just
around
gonna,
until
look
like
up-
'99, 2000. That's really when it started to hit over here.
Yeah. You got me curious like about that. Um, Looks like it first came out in it actually came out in Canada first, before it got released in the U.S. Yeah, '97 was in the U.S. So about the same time period. That's interesting, but so and then then you're right. It wasn't very popular at first, and like in later years it took off. So.
Yep.
But anyway, yeah. So and so the music in this game is also very good. It's also very fitting with the whole Wild West theme. It sounds very like Wild Westerny.
Yeah, I love this. I love the sound design on this game. I think the music's great, the sound effects, everything. Like it puts you in that mood, for sure.
Yeah. So I do agree with you that most of the game was pretty easy. I think some of the boss fights were challenging, and I do think that especially that especially that Dungeon 8 boss was kind of like a real brute. But which I think is the final boss. I don't remember. I'm trying to remember if there's a fight after that.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yep.
But yeah, so I mean, yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense. The final boss of the game like be challenging. So, yeah, so it's like trying to find a few of the things was a little bit challenging here and there, but I think the game did but the game signal posted well enough, like what you're supposed to do next, and whatnot. It wasn't quite as. It's not quite as bad as like a Zelda game trying to figure out like where to go next.
Right.
So and so obviously this game was popular enough for it to receive an English translation, which is the version that Joe and I played. And translation, the translation of the game is very good. I'm assuming they didn't add anything onto it, and the translation just simply literally is a translation. So that I don't think I don't think the people who translated the game for the fan patch added anything onto it to make the game easier. I think they just simply literally translated everything, and the clues were in the first place. Well, I haven't played the original Japanese. I can't confirm that, but I think, that's the impression I got for sure. So, but so it's a very fun game. So as I mentioned before, the game did review well in Japan when it came out. So like Famitsu, which is the big Japanese game magazine, gave it a score 26 out of 40 back when it came out, and since then, a lot of more contemporary Western magazines and sites have listed the game as like a positive marks. In fact, some of them have gone so far as to include in a list of must play Super NES imports because they like the game that much. So the game definitely is not. The game's not well known over here. Like I said, I never heard of the game, but for those who enjoy imports, definitely, as I just said, it does show up a lot in must play import game lists for the system, and for good reason. I think despite any quibbles I may have with the game, such as like the insane. The problem about playing in one sitting saw by emulator save states anyway. So. Most of the complaints we have of the game, such as the diagonal control and the game being too easy, don't really make the game, don't really distract from the game still being fun to play. Definitely if you're a Zelda fan, this game's definitely worth playing. It's definitely worth playing 100%.
Absolutely.
Because because it's very unique. It doesn't have things. Despite the game looking like a carbon copy of Zelda, it doesn't have interesting new things between the humor and also between the wild Western theme, and that still keeps the game fresh and interesting for you, even if you even if you have played and a master of all the Zelda games for sure. So, but very fun game like in that kind of way. I understand. So I understand why the game. Yes, I understand why the game came out here in the West. One, it was very late. It was very late in the system lifespan. Two, the game is very Japanese. So, but yeah, it is kind of unfortunate the game didn't come over here in the West. Did you have anything that you wanted to say about the game before we move on, Joe? Any final thoughts? Final thoughts that as far as the game.
No, I mean. It like I said, the diagonal shooting is kind of crap, but other than that, I mean, it's an easy game to learn. I don't want to say things are just kind of handed to you because you got to work for it, but it's more. It feels more linear than a Zelda game would. So I think it's easier to pick up and play for anybody, not just fans of Zelda, but any casual fan could pick it up and give it a shot.
Right. Yep. Yeah, for sure. So, So the game's not been. So the game's not been released in Japan, and the game. And so when I play the game today, you have to either track down a cart. Or play it through emulation. You are correct, Joe. There are no secrets, codes, whatever in this game. It's just like what you have is what you have. So, the game is easy. The game is easy to find enough to find like an eBay. The pricing of the game suggests that it is somewhat rare in Japan, but not the most rarest game to get a hold of. It's like you're trying to go to a complete Super Famicom collection. So, I'm going to do my best with this, but the eBay pricing listing is a little bit confusing because of the fact that not only do you have games that are being sold in North America versus copies of the game being sold in Japan. But you might expect for a game like this, there are also available Western reproductions of the game as well. Somebody stuck the translated ROM onto a North American style game pack, and it's put a North American style label on it, and so it's selling it that way. So if you want to play a physical copy of the game, you can't buy one of repros that you can stick into your system or your I'm having a brain fart. What are those clone systems called? Oh, Retron.
Yeah, the Retron.
Like the Retron, whatever, and just go. So all together between reproductions and originals, 23 copies of this game were sold with this on eBay at the time of doing research. 14 copies of the game had recently sold. Reproductions of the game were available in both the NTSC and PAL format, curiously enough. So those reproductions were all available from North America or Europe, depending upon which version of the game you wanted to play, and these prices include shipping. The prices for an English translation repro are fine. They're average. They're average pricing for what you expect for somebody who's done this. They're available. They're anywhere from $22 to $55, depending upon location and shipping and whatnot. No mock-ups of manuals or boxes have been made. Just the card, just the card itself. But it's comparable pricing for repro. Like I've seen before. If you want the original cart, one copy of the game cart only sold recently. Shipping from Japan for $115. And a complete copy of the game was available in both North America and Japan. I guess some have been trickled over here over the years. Complete copy of the game, that's more pricier. Complete copy of the game ran anywhere from $390 to $382. So that's why I said it's uncommon for sure, but not the most rare, but definitely not the most rare Super Famicom game I've seen. So. But anyway, very, very, very pleasant game. I don't know if I'd agree with this game as being one of the best imports for the system, but it is a very, very good
I definitely
game.
wouldn't put that label
definitely.
on.
but yeah, I'm just saying it is a very popular label. That's the several sites have used, and I can see why. Because I think it kind of depends upon how much you love Zelda. Because if you love Zelda, it's
Yeah,
right up your alley.
absolutely.
But but you, but even yeah, but if you're not a huge Zelda fan, I think maybe the combination of the Earthbound zombies humor and the Wild West theme does kind of make the game stand out to be a very unique game for sure, at least. So yeah, if those things sound fun to you, even if you're not the biggest Zelda fan, it's still maybe worth checking out for sure. And like we said, it's not an overly long game either. So it is like a fun romp to play through.
Absolutely.
So, anything else you want to say about the game before we wrap up here, Joe?
No, I think I've pretty much said my piece.
Okay, but alrighty, sounds good. So, it is possible that your main character is called Gunple, which is where the name comes from. I don't remember your name ever being used in the game.
I don't remember his name being specifically used either.
Yeah, because the aliens you named, the two aliens who help you are called Zero and Girl, and the alien criminal is called Demi. So I mean, they're named, but I mean, you can't even. But yeah, so. But yeah, you could name your character in this game.
Yep.
Could you, Joe? I don't remember if you have the option.
My guy was named Joe Sucks.
Oh, you could name the character. Okay, yeah. I think you're. I think your name comes up so infrequently. I forgot about it because well, I mean, Zelda does name.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much like you get scolded by your dad. You can't leave the village, and that's really like the only part where you kind of get your name, other than like when you go visit the girl in one of the houses, and she's like, "Oh, you don't know my name," and starts like crying and slaps you. And I was like, "What?" I was like, "What are you doing?" And of course, after what happened, at the Oscars, it just kind of made it that much funnier. So I wanted to make a meme where he was getting slapped and it was Chris Rock, but
Right. So, yeah, and it's not like this is a new game either, because this is actually one of the oldest translation packs patches available for the system. In 2002, this came out. So, by the Aeon Genesis group, which is one of the most well-known translation groups for games here in the West for sure. So, this has been out for like 20 years at this point almost. But yeah, I just never heard of it. Just
hey,
not
you weren't alone.
Yeah, it's like So like, I definitely appreciate the game, like what it was like trying to do. So a game similar to this, like an indie game similar to this, I think with somebody that's like played pretty well, I think. But anyway, that wraps up our thoughts on this game. As always, if you have any questions, comments, feedback, suggestions, or whatever, you can leave them on our Facebook group, or you can also send me an email directly. The email is the SNESpodcast@yahoo.com. Joe, where can they reach you at?
Well, I have a very public Facebook that you can find under my name. And then also you can find me on Twitter at JoeSux30.
And Joe is picking the next game of this podcast as well, too, so we can get things back on the track. What game do you want to cover this time, Joe?
All right, so we're going to stay in the West. Or I guess technically it'd be the East. It would be the East. And we're going to check out a very breezy game called Super Family Circuit.
I've never even heard of this game. Did it get a US release?
It did not.
It did not, okay.
So it's another Super Famicom game, which I know you love.
Okay.
And it's amazing is what it is. But so quick little description is it's a top-down racing game with multiple categories such as rally and open wheel. The tracks are rendered as a rotating Mode 7 graphic map. And it prepares you for the turns, with little graphics and whatnot. I do not know if there is an English translation for this game, but it's a racing game. We don't need an English translation.
Yeah.
Like I said, this is it's going to be a breezy episode, but I was like, you know what? Like, the game looks cool, and I really don't want to put a lot of effort into it. A little inside baseball. Like, I was just like, because technically we were prepared to do this game and then immediately followed by Legend of Zelda, and like, it wasn't planned that way. So it was kind of like one of those, like, I was like, I'm burnt out from playing these two games, and then Mega Man, and I'm not great with that game. So I was like, Greg's like, hey, you get to pick the next one. I was like, you know what? It's going to be an easy game.
Yeah, Zelda, we're going to have guest hosts on the podcast. I don't want to say like who it is yet, but, that's the, whenever you have guest hosts on the podcast, it kind of makes it a bit more difficult to plan for. So, but anyway, so stay tuned for racing game next time. Been a long time since we covered racing game on the podcast. So, so I say we're due. So, but as always, we appreciate you taking a few minutes every day to listen to us. Stay safe, everybody. Like, be well, and we'll catch you again next time. Thanks again for listening as always, and take care.
Bye.
All. Later.
Nintendo controls 80% of the video market. But no matter how you play the game, or which game you play, things definitely have come a long way since Pac-Man.
Now you're playing with power. Deep of power.